Hola, hola, hola. Hola amigos, ¿cómo estás? Ah, sí, muy bien. ¿Por qué? Bueno, amigo. Ah, sí, sí. Alright, now that we've got that out of the way, I have a story. Once upon a time, there was a construction project. It was the most intense construction project to ever happen. It was simply a man who was hoping to set up this glorious wreath on the third floor of his house using this huge extended ladder. He had the ladder all set up and he was getting ready to set up this huge wreath. His wife was really looking forward to it. All of the neighborhood was looking forward to it. Literally all of humanity was looking forward to seeing this wreath put up. And this man was excited to get this wreath up. He was really excited about the final result. But what did he neglect to do? He neglected to do one simple thing. He said, I am not going to step on the first rung of this ladder. And I am not going to step on the second rung of this ladder. And in fact, I am not going to step on the third or the fourth or the fifth or the sixth or the seventh rung of this ladder. And I am going to try to get to the very top rung of this ladder without touching any of the other rungs on this ladder. Can you automatically see the problem here? This man thought he could get the end result without practicing and doing and stepping on and learning from each and every rung of the ladder that brought him up to his final destination. And because of that, the wreath was never set up. The man was never able to feel the proud joy of knowing that the wreath was up. The wife was never able to glory over it. The neighborhood never saw it. And humanity never experienced any benefits from this wreath that now sat in this man's shed because he was unable and unwilling and chose to not go on any of the rungs of this ladder. Now, let me ask you, what in the heck does this have to do with love? And what does that have to do with my title, The Final Evolution of Love, which I may or may not call this video, I'm not sure. Well, stick around past this intro and we'll dive into what I'm talking about and why it's important in this episode of Love Stories with Grady. Hola amigo, nice to see you again. I'm Grady, as you know, mi nombre, Grady Wyzorek, and I'm a 22-year-old boy who has never been in a relationship longer than 22 hours. Yep. This is the final of 5 episodes of Love Stories with Grady. No, the series is not over yet, but there's a mini series that I've been doing in this Love Stories with Grady overarching bigger series. And what this mini series is about is the stages of love and the ladders of love. And these ladders, these rungs of the ladders, are pulled and discussed from Facts of Life and Love for Teenagers by Evelyn Millis Duvall, written in 1957. And what she talks about is that pretty much every single person experiences one element or another of these different rungs when they're growing up. And part of our development is experiencing these different rungs and learning from them. And this is why I was talking about in the beginning of the video is if we try to hop to the final rung without experiencing any of the other rungs, we might be in a little bit of trouble. So what are the rungs? Let's do a quick review. So 1, self-love. 2, love for your family. 3, childhood sweethearts. 4, role models. 5, crushes on older people. 6, crushes on peers, people that you actually eventually want to date and marry. And then in this video, we're going to be talking about the final 2 rungs that are mentioned in Facts of Life and Love for Teenagers by Evelyn Millis Duvall. We'll make this quick. We'll make this snappy. All right, so the next rung is love for the next generation. Now, it's one thing to think that little babies are cute and, adorable and all of these different things and to admire them from a distance, but it's another thing to actually want to help them grow into becoming the next generation and want the best for them and want to set them up for a life well lived. What this book talks about is really having this desire and then deciding to act upon this desire of nurturing and protecting children from the evils of this world, from the hardships of this world. Of course, they've got to face some hardships on their own. You're not going to be able to protect them always. And part of the way that they learn is by experiencing hardships and overcoming it themselves instead of you overcoming it for them. But also part of what nurturing is for the next generation is helping them understand the difference between right and wrong and helping them understand what to look for when making right and wrong decisions and how to look at things from different angles and how to be an empathetic human being and all of these things. For me, when it comes to the next generation, sometimes I get a really big righteous anger when I see people hurting the younger generation and playing with the minds of this younger generation, and it just kind of really ticks me off, and I want to do something about it, but I can't just say that I want to do something about it. I have to decide to do something about it. An interesting thing about these rungs is they don't have to happen exactly in a certain order, but you can't like go from self-love to jumping up all the way to nurturing the next generation without like learning how to love others first. All of the rungs on the ladder should be continually developing, except for like random one-off ones where it's like childhood sweethearts. After you date and marry, you definitely don't need a childhood sweetheart around, okay? Now let me tell you this, the final rung on the ladder, and this is where I think it's so important to experience at least some level of all of these different rungs beforehand, because it develops your love for this next rung here. The final rung on the ladder, according to Evelyn Millis Duvall, is a love for all of humanity. For the neighbor who stomped on your toe. For the stranger that gave you a gift of flowers on the street. For the political figure that you may not like on either side of the aisle, but you still choose to have some element of love and respect for that person, because you have a personal belief that everyone on some extent deserves to experience love, which is a whole nother topic in and of itself. I'm not going to go into that, but a love of humanity, I personally believe, doesn't pick and choose who you love. Sure, you might invest different time and care into people who are a lot better fit in your life and who you believe justify your love a lot more. However, pure 100% hatred for every single person is, I think, unwarranted, because even the worst people in history had a personal story that they had their hardships and they had a reason that they became the villain, in a sense, in our history. And if we always choose to throw rocks at people that we don't necessarily like, and if we choose to neglect any element of them that may be positive, are we really being led fully by love? That's my question. Not going to go too much into that. I feel like so many people would disagree with me on that, but that's because I have a different foundation in the beginning. Like, I have a different belief in love than probably most of society does. So do with that what you will. And an interesting thing that Evelyn Millis Duvall brought up in this chapter 10 about these ladders of love, or ladder of love, is she talked about how can you truly love someone if you can't truly forgive someone. And that's a whole nother video in and of itself. But I just want you to think of, all right, who haven't I forgiven in my life? And what's stopping me from forgiving them? Is it my own pride that's stopping me from forgiving them? Remember, just because you forgive someone doesn't mean that things have to go back to how they once were. You can still keep someone at a distance and still forgive them. However, sometimes forgiveness is more about your heart rather than that other person. That other person might not be able to appreciate the love that you give them or value the love that you give them. But love for humanity isn't about how other people will treat you. It's about doing the right thing and viewing people the right way, regardless of how you're treated back in return. And in addition to that, something that I want to mention, I don't know if this was in the book or if this was just in my notes. I wrote these notes a while back, but love isn't only about singing Kumbaya. It's not all being around the campfire and being the best of buddies and being totally positive. Part of love is wanting the best for other people, and that sometimes means sowing comments into their life or sowing perspectives in their life that maybe they don't want to hear, showing them potentially a path that they can choose or they cannot choose. It's up to them, but showing them a path that you think will be more enriching to their life than the path that they're currently on. Sometimes these are hard conversations to have. Sometimes love is having tough conversations. Sometimes love is being truthful when no one really wants you to be, because it's easier to act blissfully ignorant about life than to get really down and dirty about the truth of the matter. There are so many different elements of love, and my point is, whether it's love for humanity, whether it's love for the next generation, whether it's love for the spouse, whether it's a love for your family, what I would really encourage you to do is say, how can I improve in the area of love? You know, it's interesting because in this series, in Love Stories with Grady series, I pretty much only planned on talking about love in the element of relationships because I'm passionate about that. But I'm also passionate about love when it comes to so many other things, when it comes to how we treat so many other people. And learning about love in general and acting out love in general to each and every single person, even if they're not your spouse or even if they're not the person you want to date, that enriches and grows the love that you have for your spouse, for the person that you want to date. And that is exciting. And that is what love is all about. Love builds love. Loving person A can build your love for loving person B. And that love for person A, for person B, can grow your love for person C. And each of these relationships, each of these friendships may be totally different. And you might love each person for different reasons and at different quantities and at different levels. But these elements grow us in the way that we treat others. Even in this past month, I've seen myself grow in certain ways for a love for humanity that I don't think I've ever had before. And that really excites me. Here's how I want to close out this 5-part mini-series about the rungs in the ladder of love, all right? I want to read a paragraph from this final paragraph on this topic from the book Facts of Life and Love for Teenagers. Let's dive into it. Evelyn Millis Duvall says, "We have seen how we grow up in our ability to love. Just as surely, we must necessarily grow out. We start with love of ourselves, then we can love the family and the persons closest to us. As we mature, we find it possible to love an ever wider circle of people, until at last, our love encompasses all mankind." And don't you want to get to that point where you're able to love all mankind, where you're able to even look at the worst of people and still see them as a person and still have an element of grace for them, because you know you are not perfect either on the inside. And people have been able to give you grace in some areas as well. That doesn't mean consequences are thrown out the window for doing horrible things, but we can still love people in the midst of making sure that they have consequences for their wrongdoings and for their actions. Anyway, as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about this topic of love, and I appreciate you watching through this 5-part mini-series about these different rungs of love all the way up through the ladder. I'm grateful for you as a person, and I love you as a person, because you and I are more alike than we probably even know. And with each person on this video, I can probably relate to you in at least some way. I'm happy for your existence here on Earth, and I'm happy as well to see what you do with your existence on Earth. Because even in the worst situations, even when you feel the most absent of love, I dare you to go out and show love to 5 people. Show that unconditionally. Do it even when you don't want to, and stop yourself after you've shown love to 5 people and ask yourself, did I grow at all? Did I change at all? Did I feel a little tiny bit better at showing love to other people and focusing on positivity rather than negativity? All right, comment below what stood out to you most from this video, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. This has been Grady Wyzorek, and I will see you next video.